And
Where it
it'll
goes.
save in the Zoom. Yep. There it goes.
All right. Welcome everyone again to the October Color Your School Green meeting. We are going to be doing a deep dive this evening on gardens and school gardens and green groundskeeping. We're going to do a quick introduction to Color Your School Green and then jump into the information that you all joined to learn about tonight. All right, so okay. So Color Your School Green is a project of the Climate Solutions Accelerator and covers these 9 counties in the Genesee Finger Lakes region. The mission of Color Your School Green is to build a climate solutions toolkit and a network that empowers students, educators, and parents to be greater agents of change in their school, their district, and in their greater community. To that end, we have accumulated and are continuing to accumulate resources by solution in a Google Drive. There's all these folders with people who are pushing these projects forward, and there's links, allies, people that can help, and we're just trying to be kind of librarians of these climate solutions. And tonight we are diving into the nature-based solutions, and you can explore this network or this Google Drive. It is linked in the agenda. So explore the toolkit, connect to the network, and come and join our monthly meetings. And we usually meet on the 4th Thursdays every month, although that's changing for the holidays, and then we'll be back on the regular cycle in the new year. Okay, without further ado, we are learning tonight about school gardens and green groundskeeping. And we have only 2 of the 3 speakers could make it tonight. Heather was sick, and so we are joined by Leah Sada Sherman. She runs the garden program at Jefferson Ave School in Fairport, and she's also a board member of Color Fairport Green, and they are doing phenomenal work in this area. Jill Bellinger advocates for quiet, zero-emission landscaping with quiet communities and the Quiet Clean Alliance. She has a bachelor's from ESF in landscape architecture. I will turn it over to Leah.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I put my email on that first slide, so if anyone has any questions after this, I'm happy to share whatever I know. I've been running the JA Garden this is our 4th year now that we're doing it. And it is at our school, it's run by the PTA. So it's like a PTA funded kind of thing. And I'll tell you kind of how they got started. But I just wanted to mention sort of the reason I wanted to do this and kind of my view of like school gardens in general. I think their purpose is really different than like, say, a community garden or a home garden or something like that. Same way I feel about like sustainability committees in schools. And I think education really has to be like the #1 goal when it's in a school environment. So like our goal is not to produce the highest yield of fruits and vegetables. Like we're not turning into a farm. You know, that's fun to get lots of stuff, but that's not like our primary goal. So really the main thing is that we want to get, especially at this elementary level, our goal is for the kids to really connect with nature and like have their hands in the dirt and, you know, pick foods that they grew and actually eat them out of the ground, you know, see all the worms and the bugs and all of that stuff. Like for that age group, especially, that really is the most important thing. So that kind of drives, you know, what we grow. We don't necessarily, you know, I grow a lot of things that the kids can just grab and eat right there because that's like their favorite thing in the world. So like lots of herbs and, you know, different things that maybe they never tasted before. Also things that are easy to grow so that the kids can have a hand in helping to plant them and to grow them, easy to harvest, things like that. So that's just kind of the way that I look at, you know, how our garden program develops. Yeah, and we've had lots of students actually who their teachers would describe them as being like super picky eaters. And yet they'll come out to the garden and they'll taste, you know, a piece of raw kale from the garden or a nasturtium flower or whatever it is, you know, which is really a cool thing. Okay, you can go to the next slide. So just to give you a quick background how this, so there were 4 garden beds that actually already existed in the courtyard, and Amber maybe can tell us when those were built, because I think she was the driver of that. I don't know. You can let us know, Amber.
Yeah, I don't remember the year. Yes, and yes, it was one of our initiatives, and we were just like, this is perfect. Like there's a courtyard, there's no issue with deer, there's a water spigot there. We can let the kids grow vegetables and fruits. It was before, I think it was like 2017, something like that.
Okay. So, Amber moved on, and I think some of them just got overgrown. They weren't really used anymore. So, but they already existed. So that was a plus, that we didn't have to like start from scratch. So I met with the building principal. He was completely on board for all the reasons, just even from like a health perspective for the kids. And then he had me meet with the lead teacher, who kind of was helping me organize like where we would start. And then I had a meeting with the head of the grounds and maintenance, just to, the logistics of it. We wanted to ensure them that we were going to take care of it. It wasn't going to become this like overgrown mess that they had to fix, which is a real concern for grounds and maintenance. So make sure that you keep them in mind if you're planning something like this. And then we decided that who was going to start this. So it ended up being that I was going to email all the teachers and see who was interested. I couldn't make this like a requirement. Obviously, it was who wanted to. And the first year we had 15 teachers right off the bat that really wanted to be involved, as well as all of our 4th grade classes, because they do a homespun, which is like a colonial days, which involves gardening already. So instead of gardening into little plastic cups, they now garden into our garden bed, which is way better. Okay, you can move on to the next slide. So this is just a picture. These were the original beds, not what they looked like when Amber did them, I'm sure, but this is what they ended up looking like. So, they were structurally fine, but nobody was doing anything with them. So in spring of like 2022, we organized some parents and the PTA, and we just kind of cleaned them out, added some soil, things like that. You can go to the next slide. Later on, like a year later, so after we used those 4, we grew a little bit bigger. So we did actually build 2 new garden beds in the spring of 2023. And at that point, PTA had kind of added us as a budget line. So we had a little money, which was great, so that we could buy things in the future as well. And yeah, we did that. Yeah, so now we have 6 garden beds, all 4x6 or 4x8, excuse me, and 1 like bean trellis like teepee. Okay, so when the student or teachers decide that they want their classes to be involved, there's several ways they can do it. Some of them germinate their seeds in their classroom. So we bought these germination stations for any teachers that are interested. You can see them planting some seeds in them. They all had like a heat mat underneath and a grow light on top. And I go into their classrooms and help them plant and then set up kind of their station for them. I do have some parents that help too, but it's a lot of me for now. So a lot of classes will do this, and then they watch them grow for like 6 to 8 weeks in their classroom. So they have a spot in their classroom that the kids can see them grow, and I kind of check in on them. And this happens like February, March-ish. And then once that time is gone and they're kind of done with them in the classroom, I collect them all. And you can see that picture on the top left with my daughter Eve next to it with a shovel. We bought 2 of these shelving units, and they live in the teacher lounge. They were able to give us like a spot on the wall there that I could keep them while they were continuing to grow, and I could keep taking care of them and watering them until they're ready to go outside, which sometimes is another few weeks before that happens. So that's kind of that process. Next slide. And then whatever teachers germinate, they also have a chance, they sign, and I work all these schedules out with the teachers through email. They pick a time that works for them, and I meet them outside in the courtyard, and we actually take their plants that they planted in the germination station, and the kids move it to the garden beds in the courtyard. Sometimes I have to supplement if maybe they died a little bit. I might buy some baby plants. It depends, but as long as everyone gets to plant something, as well as planting some things right from seeds. So they plant, like squash seeds and bean seeds right into the ground, and then they also transfer some of their plants that they planted in their classroom. So just some of the things that we plant, lots of different herbs. So we have right now, we have parsley and sage, parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. I just realized I wrote it in that order. That's really funny. Like the song. Basil, nasturtium. We grow kale, we grow tomatoes and cucumbers and squash and beans and peas and corn and lots of flowers. We talk about pollinators. So we do have one of the beds that's dedicated just to pollinator plants. And then that's part of the education too, is teaching kids that the bugs are important as well. And then you can go to the next slide. So then the summer happens. So that's always the challenge of gardens in schools, is that a lot of things grow in the summertime, which is hard. So JA it's great the way they work this out. They have usually 3 or 4 like read alouds where the principal invites, like all the kids are invited to come back to school in the summer, and they sit outside and the principal and the vice principal read a book to the kids. And we've now in the last couple of years incorporated the garden into that as well. So they sit and listen to a book, and then they get to come, you know, pick some stuff in the garden and walk around the garden and check out the garden with their parents, which is great. So, you know, tomatoes and things that are actually harvested in the summer, we actually have people that can take them, which is awesome. So the other thing I wanted to point out in this picture is the third one, or the second one from the right. I don't know if you can see it, but there is a huge yellow garden spider that we had this year. It's like, I mean, I'm not kidding. It's like this big. It was enormous, but that became like our garden pet this year, and the kids were obsessed with it. It was the coolest spider I've ever seen. And then just like at the end of the summer, or the beginning of the fall, actually, it laid like an egg sac like this big. And so the kids could see that. And I did safely move it somewhere else. So we did not end up with hundreds of yellow garden spiders in our garden next year. But they loved it. Like, it was a really cool experience. The kids wanted to see, even kids who were like kind of scared, they were like, yeah, okay, I want to check it out, you know, which was great. Okay, so what else did I say? Yeah, oh yeah, I do have some families that are, I have like a garden committee from PTA parents. And in the summer, I try to set up a sign up so that it's not just me every single week going into water. And the last couple of years have been great, actually. I had people sign up to take like a week at a time, and they go in and kind of take care of the garden, water, they get to harvest whatever is harvestable. A lot of times if there's extra food in the summer and there's nobody there to pick it, I will make donations to like one of the local food shelves, or the secretaries and the staff that are there in the summer. They love getting fresh tomatoes and cucumbers and things like that. So it does not go to waste, that's for sure. You can go to the next slide, thank you. And then in the fall, I get lots of classes that want to help harvest everything. So the big ones the last couple of years have been tomatoes and carrots. So we get a really good harvest of both of those, enough that we can actually serve it in the cafeteria, which is awesome. So the kids love, you know, seeing their fruits and vegetables grown, and then being able to be eaten in the cafeteria. This year we grew not yellow or not orange carrots, but we did like multicolored carrots, which was weird, but they thought it was cool to see like a purple carrot or white carrot. And then we also grow corn stalks and pumpkins and squash. So we do a Three Sisters bed. The fourth graders help plant that because they learn about that in their class. So the Native American history tie in there, which is great. And then we use those corn stalks and pumpkins to decorate for a festival that we do in the fall. And we kind of put a sign like, this was grown in our garden, just so people know. We have tons of sage that grows. So usually I have the kids help me harvest it, and I dry it, and I give all the participating classes a little packet of sage to take home, and they use it in their Thanksgiving cooking. And I usually get a couple pictures back, which is cool, of them like, you know, showing them the turkey with the sage they actually used, which is great. And that's and just tasting. So like I said, I try to grow as many things as I can that they can just grab and eat. And it's amazing, like they want to taste rosemary which is disgusting, but they like it. So, you know, you just grow whatever things that they can grab and eat as much as possible. So that's the harvesting. Okay. And then just a few other, like throughout the couple of years that we've been doing this, we try to connect to the curriculum, like I said, with colonial days and the fourth grade curriculum. They learn about Native American history. So the Three Sisters is a great tie-in for that. But also in the past, which I love when this happens, a teacher will sometimes approach me and ask if they can do something that ties into their curriculum. So for example, there was the top left picture in here, there was a fifth grade team that they were like raising worms in their classroom. and they wanted a place to release these worms. And she asked, can we release them into the garden? I said, oh, that's great. Can we also teach you about vermiculture composting while you release them into the garden? So they said, sure. So we had the whole team out there, and actually Carrie, who's another board member of Color Fairport Green, she has a worm composting system in her house. I don't think she does anymore, but she did at the time. So she brought it, and the kids got to like feed the worms, which was really fun. And then they released their worms into the garden, which was really a cool connection for them. I had a second grade teacher who told me about a program they do where they give pumpkins to pigs. And she asked if it'd be possible that we could grow some of those pumpkins that they could give to the pigs. So this was the first year we were successful. You can see those 3 kids. We've got small pumpkins, but we did it. They kind of took over. They like grew out of the garden beds, and it's all a learning process, but it was cool. We got pumpkins. And then I mentioned the colonial days. And then the other thing is we do have a Go Green team. So it's like our environmental club. And those kids have been really involved in and helping in lots of ways. So they help me like clear out the garden beds, finish the harvesting. They kind of add the leaves to it in the fall to, get it ready for the winter. And it's great that they have sort of an ownership of the garden too. Let me see if I missed anything here. I think that's, oh yeah. So I just wanted to mention, because you're going to talk about Heather's, hopefully. It's great now we have, so there's the other elementary school is working on a garden as well. There's one other elementary school. We now have both middle schools with a garden, and the high school is starting a garden. So it's really cool now to see that like some kids who started in the garden stuff at the elementary school, they can now join their garden club in the middle school, and like kind of a garden is part of their school experience, which I think is a really neat things for these kids. And then really quick before I'm done, is just some challenges that obviously some of them are obvious, but a lot of the stuff I do does happen during the day, which I'm very lucky that my schedule allows for that, but I know that's not common. So, finding a way for parents to help that want to help, that's not necessarily during the school day, is something that I'm working on. Also, I don't want to do this forever. My kid will be at this school for 2 more years after this year. So I'm hoping that I can make the garden program enough a part of the curriculum that that they'll take, in whatever form it becomes, that it'll continue to grow even after I no longer am doing it. And it might change, which is fine. But I think at this point, a lot of teachers are very invested in it. There's a lot of staff that helps out with it. The principal's on board. So that's my hope, is that it will outlive me in the future. And I think that's it.
Thank you so much, Leah.
Yeah.
It's such an amazing story. I noticed there's something in the chat. Amber, is there a question?
No, I was just adding the agenda because Jane is here. So.
Oh, okay. Welcome. All right. Any questions before we move on to our next speaker? Okay. If there is, please feel free to pop it into the chat. We'll regroup after. I do just want to highlight before we go on to Jill, because we were talking gardens, that Heather has created this really phenomenal website. I'm sure there were others involved as well, but for the Joanna Perrin Victory Garden, and there are so many great things here for other schools to kind of grab and see what the process is. And I mean, it's all just incredible. One thing that I really liked was whole school learning. She's been able to work with her colleagues across the curriculum to find ways, how does the garden relate to art? What projects were they able to do? Home and careers, social studies at various levels, ELA, ENL, science, math, technology. It just keeps going. It's really incredible. Library Media Center, health, BOCES Creekside, counseling and mental health. So, so there's that, this is definitely gardening across the curriculum. And she talks about being a member of Eco Schools USA. They've gotten some funding through this organization. different projects, the garlic project at different years. They go and sell plants at the farmer's market. I mean, it's really very impressive. So I encourage all of you guys to take a minute to explore this, well, an hour to explore this. And I don't want to speak for Leah specifically, but I know that the Penfield STEAM director was able to go to the Fairport Middle School and talk with Heather and sort of tour the garden. Have you done that, Leah? To any tours with
Have I
other
toured Heather's garden?
No, have other school districts come and toured your garden?
No, that
Okay,
has not happened. No.
well, that might happen.
No. Yeah, and
Actually, it
also
needs to happen.
another really amazing thing about Heather's garden, just because she also happens to be a FACS teacher, is that a lot of their food in their FACS classes are from the garden, which is just such an amazing like connection for the kids to be able to grow it and then cook it in their
Yeah.
classes. I just think that's great. So
Absolutely. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah. So they have potato lab and tomatoes and what is this? Hulk muffins made with kale. Anyway, really great, ideas and curriculum that kids, start to finish. They grow the seeds, they grow the plants, they then cook with them, and they love it. So, and there are ninth grade kids now coming back to help with the garden club as well. So it's been it's just really grown through the years. Amber?
Yeah, if it's okay, I wanted to jump in and say, Leah, that is so amazing. And like, it's such an incredible, I'm so grateful for this opportunity because like, I know you and I know that you work hard at this, but like, I don't know all the nuances of it. And it's incredible what you've done with this. Um, and I was just curious, like, I know that Heather has something on there about mental health. Have you experienced anything like that with the students coming out and like needing a break and just being in the garden or anything like that?
yeah, I think I mean, I only see them for half an hour at a time. It's like a quick, snippet, but the teachers have told me there's definitely some students who, they're having a hard day and sometimes they want to go out to the garden. Like that's their place where they want to go, or there actually is a kid on the Go Green team who struggles in a lot of his classes. And when he comes out to help with the garden, like he wants to be in charge. He'll take ownership of, okay, I'm going to organize this. I'm going to make sure that we get this cleaned out. And like, he's just on top of it. Like it's his zone. I think for all kids that everyone needs like a space, and it definitely is for some of the kids, which is cool. Yeah.
Story. There's also some creative ways to fund these gardens. I know that at least Heather has, I can't remember which tab it is, but she gets families to sponsor a new garden. And so they help fund that. And then there's a lot of donations that come in, like their compost bins were donated to them. And so it's great to connect with the community. And anyway, lots of good things coming out of these gardens. All right, we are going to shift to our next speaker, Jill Bellinger. And is this right? Yes. Okay. All right.
Thank you,
Jill.
Katie, and thank you. And thank you, Leah. I don't have any questions. I just have a lot of applause and praise because of all the work that you've done. Jane can speak to the things that we did in Pittsford a little bit, and just the things that you guys have been able to do in growing things that the kids are eating. I mean, that is just amazing. And I'll just say one thing, the pollinator gardens at the Pittsford elementary schools, I remember the time I checked out the one at Allen's Creek was so fun because they got a volunteer tomato plant. Like they didn't plant a tomato plant, but a bird decided that they needed a tomato plant. And so it just showed up there like your spider, except not a spider. So that was just a really cool thing that they learned. Anyways, so what I'm going to talk about, it might be a little bit of a buzzkill at first because I'm going to talk a little bit about pollution and whatnot, but I'm going to get into some solutions and kind of what we can do on the local level at our schools and what people in our schools actually are maybe already be doing to kind of solve these issues. So I'm going to talk about grounds and maintenance. And I know that this is a pretty picture of beautiful turf and everything, but it also has a little bit of darkness lurking. So we can go to the next slide, Katie. And sorry, buzzkill. So a lot of these, a lot of the school yards, school grounds are maintained by gas-powered equipment. And that comes with its own issues from a climate perspective, and then also from a public health perspective. Small off-road engines, which are commonly referred to as SOARs. These are like with your mowers and your blowers and everything like that, the smaller engines. They actually account, I'm sorry that this is getting cut off if you have your windows on the side, they're 5% of all US emissions. So they actually have a significant climate impact. The picture on the right of all the blower dudes, there's actually another dude off to the side if you have your windows covering him, and that's actually at a university campus. So sort of overkill. You can go to the next slide, Kate. So people talk a lot about, the pollution from passenger vehicles, and how we're pushing for EV on the road and everything like that. But there is less talk. There's more so now, but there's been less talk about transitioning the small engines, which actually per piece of equipment, if you were to compare, say, a mower or a blower, they're actually more polluting than a car. And the reason for that is that these small engines, they don't have the complicated pollution prevention, the catalytic converters and everything that's incorporated into our vehicles. Like, say, if you were to take your vehicle in to get emissions tested, it's likely going to pass. And if it doesn't, then there's ways that you can go about, helping it along. If you were to bring your, say, lawnmower or your leaf blower in, they would not be able to test it. It would not pass. They're not equipped to test those. Although places like Consumer Reports or Edmunds or whatever, they have done these tests to find out that 1 hour of a leaf blower use is equivalent to driving over 1,000 miles. So the leaf blowers are kind of the worst of the small engines when it comes to air pollution. Can go to the next. So this is a bunch of numbers, but the US PIRG did a really, really great comprehensive report that came out about a year ago. And I linked it in the electric lawn care campaign that I can talk about later. Just it breaks down like everything you ever wanted to know about these pieces of equipment and just how much of a climate impact they have. And just to pick one, the carbon dioxide they emit in the entire country. Lawn and garden equipment emits 30 million tons of CO2, and that's equivalent to about 6.5 million cars on the road. So it's a significant source. Sticking with the buzzkill theme, air pollution impacts and asthma in children. So I've been doing this advocacy for a little over 5 years, and the one stat that really stuck with me is that asthma is the #1 chronic condition in children. So clean air is so important for children, for their health and well-being. There's 5 million children, 5 million, I believe, in the country that actually have asthma. And it's disproportionately in areas that have low income, urban minority populations, unfortunately. So we have a lot of work to do. And again, so you thought it was just air pollution, but it's also super loud. So gas-powered equipment, it tends to be on a much louder spectrum, low and high frequency sounds. It's the kind that like permeates walls and windows. You can close your window so you don't breathe the fumes in, but you can still, hear it through the walls. And so this is, I know some of the text might have gotten cut off, but just to show that if you get too much high decibel noise coming into your ears, it's really hard, if not impossible, to reverse hearing loss, hearing damage. I guess it wasn't last year that they made hearing aids over the counter just because of the prevalence of hearing loss in this country. They're now trying to make it easier to distribute hearing aids to people. I have tinnitus myself, and that's a form of hearing loss. Can go to the next one and we'll show you some decibels. When it gets to be about 85 decibels, and this is a logarithmic scale, so every 10 is actually, it's doubling. So it may look like just a little bit, but the difference between, like, say, an 80 and 100 is you could lose your hearing if you're going to be exposed to, say, in the 100 decibel range, 14 minutes can cause damage. And I guess that's a football for maybe a really loud Bills game. I don't know. So getting into a really interesting study, back in 1975, there was a study done in New York City in a public school that had an elevated train platform on one side of the building. And so they had classrooms on one side that were exposed to that noise. And then there was another side of the building that was not exposed as much. And what they did was they actually studied for some time how that impacted the students. And the woman that did this study in 1975 is actually still with Quiet Communities. That's one of the organizations that I'm an advocate with. So there's a little bit more stats that I couldn't fit on the page there that are kind of interesting. The learners in the that were facing the tracks, they had lower reading levels than the students that were shielded from the noise. And the learners in the room exposed to the sounds of the train were on average 3 to 11 months behind their peers. So what was interesting is they actually installed padding on the railroad tracks after learning this horrible stat. They were able to reduce the noise, which meant the reading level disparity disappeared. So that was really interesting. Repeated exposure to noise doesn't just affect language tasks like reading, like in this study. It also has a negative impact on students' ability to do visual tasks, such as recalling images or concentrating on objects. Like, it just kind of makes everything harder. So going back to the small engines, so the reason why I focus on this so much is I felt like there are a lot of really great advocates that know a lot about, EV school buses, on pesticides and everything. There's organizations for a lot of these things that are advocating for, positive change in these areas that are going to have a really big impact. I felt like there wasn't a whole lot of information and advocacy on this side of things. And I was learning more and more about how it could really have a huge impact on reducing emissions. Going back to the 5% of all US emissions coming from small engines. And again, the reduced noise pollution. And then another interesting factor, it's actually a lot less costly than other programs, like, say, the EV school buses. It's kind of a big pill to swallow. I know that we do have a mandate, but if you have a school district, like we have in Henrietta, we have the propane school buses, and they're like really fighting the EV transition because they already spent all this money on the propane. So if there's a school district that's having a hard time with the EV buses, swapping out some equipment that costs them a few $1,000s is a little bit easier to swallow than a $400,000 bus. So, I mean, they can make a little bit of an impact and, kind of get to that bigger expense, like a building system upgrade, HVAC, something like that. The return on investment, it's really fascinating. So University of San Diego, many years ago, they shifted to all electric in their equipment on campus, and they've been able to save between $15,000 and $20,000 a year because they're not spending a whole bunch of money on maintenance and fuel. So there's studies out there, lower maintenance, lower fuel costs long term. So it's hard to change, it's like the Titanic. But if you just kind of stick with it and, keep reminding people that, change is hard, but it's also, this is a long-term kind of investment, and it's gonna pay off, on the climate side and also on the public health side. And then I'm just going to leave you with this. The electric lawn care campaign is something that we started over the summer, and anybody with Color Your School Green, or there's also a Color Your Community Green version, you can reach out to leaders in your community, facilities managers at school. Those are the people that know exactly what they're using and what works for them. I just learned the other day that in Henrietta, all of the building-based maintenance crews, they have all electric weed whackers. And I found out about this because I saw them use one. I said, I swear that's electric. That's awesome. But yeah, so you might not even know what they're doing because they're quiet about it. There's no press releases. Not even when the county got 10 zero-turn electric, like Greenworks brand mowers. They've been using them all year. There was no press release. I love Madison, but I keep telling them, let's bring some more attention to this so people know what's happening, because the facilities directors, they want to know who they can learn from. And then just these 3 pictures, we didn't really have a lot of time to go through this. So there's strategies outside of just switching to zero emission or hand tools, to reach our climate goals and improve public health. Leaving the leaves under the drip line of these trees, that's one way to do it. You don't really have to maintain those spaces like crazy. It's even better for the trees. They'll be healthier for it. And it's less time spent, maintaining during the fall and winter and all that. Avoid mowing under the drip line. Again, it's great for the trees. This picture is actually from Seattle. Their parks director has these great presentations about what they've been doing out there. And they can show you the difference between the trees that had this treatment and the ones that have been mowed like right up to the tree trunk. And the trees are so much healthier. And then the picture that's cut off on my screen is Plant for Pollinators. That is the new pollinator garden that Jane and others worked on at Great Embankment Park. So just keep on trying with this. And the campaign is in Slack, and then you can also reach out to me. I'm on Slack to learn more about it and see where everybody's at. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jill. That was so informative. I'm going to, well, first, the other advantage to leaving the leaves, Jill, is that it really helps the insect populations because they overwinter in the leaves, and then the insects feed the baby birds in the spring. So it really is like a whole ecosystem, a really important thing. So thank you for bringing that to everyone's attention.
Absolutely. And you got to have a picture like that in the fall. I mean, that's what everything looks like outside anyway. So just makes me happy.